did you end up working as a lawyer?
Well, that's a great question. So I grew up in the States. I'm originally from the US. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is a relatively conservative city in the Midwest, about 350,000 people. I think it's about the size of Barcelona, maybe a little bit smaller, but Midwestern, quite conservative. I grew up in the 80s, so it was very Republican, very Ronald Reagan supporting, very not pro LGBT plus. There was some ethnic diversity and racial diversity, so not a lot, but we definitely had a mixture of African Americans, South Asians, East Asians. Really, at that point, the Latinos were really more in kind of bigger cities. There was not much of a Latino present in Cincinnati. So I grew up in that kind of very conservative environment. My family is Jewish, so 3 of my 4 grandparents had left Europe before World War II, before the Holocaust, and 2/3 of my family that were left behind were gone. So basically, there's no relatives left in Europe. My relatives are all in America, with a few people who I think are in Israel. So my grandparents were German, Russian, Ukrainian, Lithuanian. So quite a mutt and quite a mixture, all Jewish. And then my father's father was from the German side, and they came over a little bit earlier. So his family emigrated upon German reunification in the late 1800s. They moved to America. And I think they were relatively prominent in Germany, but they were not prominent in America. My father likes to joke that some of his relatives are probably in jail in Kentucky. So I grew up with that background. Because of that background, no one in my family had been to university. My parents are first generation to go to university. My grandparents, when they moved to America, had no money, didn't speak English.
Wow.
Their native language was Yiddish. They also spoke, I think, that was probably the only language they really spoke fluently was Yiddish, which is a kind of dialect of Hebrew. It's a mixture of Hebrew, German, Russian. They're different versions of Yiddish, but that's what they all spoke as Jewish immigrants. They came with nothing. So my mother's father sold pots and pans door to door out of the back of his car to support his family. And my father's father worked at the train station in Cincinnati and worked on the schedules in that office. My parents then were the first to go to university. My father was able to go because he did a program where you could go to engineering school and work 6 months and then study for 6 months. And he did that over the course of like 4 or 5 years and got a dual chemical and metallurgical engineering degree. And then my mother tested into what you guys call a state selective school. So we call them magnet schools in the US. So she tested into it is a free, non-fee paying school, but an elite school that did end up teaching her, Latin and French in high school. And then she went on to nursing school and got an RN and then got a master's in education. And she worked as an RN and running a nursing school. So when I was born in the 70s, my mom was working while I was born, and she worked until I was 6 or 7, which is very unusual in the 70s for women to work while they have children and balance those two things. So I have a background of strong independent women. I went on and I thought I was going to be a doctor to follow in my mother's footsteps. She said that had she not been raised when she was raised, being born in the 50s and how conservative things were, women were basically like, you can be a housewife, you can be a teacher, you can be a nurse. So she chose, but she really would have been a doctor. And she always had said that. So I think I wanted to honor her and go into medicine. And then I, went to high school, went to university. I went to university in St. Louis, did pre-med, and realized I was a little burnt out on school and did not want to go to, because in America, you do 4 years of undergraduate, then you go to medical school. So the road to becoming a doctor is at the absolute shortest 10 years. And it sometimes takes 12, 14, 15, 16 years if you specialize to become fully qualified. So if you become a psychiatrist, for example, and I knew I didn't want to do that. So since medicine went out the window, I thought, I'll just go to law school. And the thing is, it's funny about it is people talk about this. I didn't know any lawyers. I mean, some people around me where I grew up were lawyers, but we didn't have family friends that were lawyers. No one did law. As I said, my grandparents didn't know anyone. So I just chose it because it was like, in the Jewish culture, which is like very similar to South Asian culture. And
yeah, agreed.
cultures in Africa, you want to be a doctor, do you want to be a lawyer? These are, relatively respected professions that are risk averse. And, that's where we're pushed to go. And education is like, it was no option that I wasn't going to go to university. So I picked law because I thought, well, I don't want to do medicine. It's too many years. And also I don't like blood, so I'm not going to be a good doctor. And I wanted to travel and deal with people. And I thought, well, sitting in a room all day doing consultations and seeing maybe 10 people a day is not my idea. I like to work with groups. I like to help people. I like to assist people. And I thought law will let me do something international. It will let me travel. It will let me work with groups of people and still have that element of helping people and supporting people, which I think is the heart of what attracts us into the law.
No, really interesting. Back when I didn't fully appreciate that, you had such a sort of, that your family had come over, and really fascinating. But the point about medicine versus law really resonates with me because I had similar thoughts. And I think for so many students, you end up picking a subject by ruling other stuff out. And I know Maria is in the audience, and I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning that she started one degree and then changed her mind because, again, at the age of 17 or 18, you have no idea what you want to do. But let me ask you a question. You talked about helping people. You talked about international travel. Did law meet your expectations? Because I'm not convinced when you say helping people, because I think that phrase is overused, and I don't like it when law students say that, because I think there are certain areas of law where you do help people and others where you are helping people, but it's not so direct.
Well, look, I think people underestimate that in our profession. So I think the reality is we're attracted to law because we're interested in justice and supporting people.
Sure.
So I think, obviously the obvious areas for that is if you're doing human rights law, if you're doing employment law, that's much more kind of one-on-one and directly assisting people. But there are other ways of supporting people. So, and it's kind of like when you're supporting a charity, you can support a charity by going and volunteering directly. So if you're interested in supporting the homeless, you can go to a soup kitchen and help support by cooking or serving. You can join an organization where you're doing, direct approaches to people on the streets and helping them with food and helping them with shelter and assistance and, signposting them. Or you can maybe volunteer by, doing PR and social media for them. You can volunteer by doing fundraising. So you don't have to do direct work. So I think within law, when I look at my career, people think, oh, well, what does corporate law have to do with helping people? Well, first of all, when your clients are corporates or banks, they're all those are, they don't sell light bulbs or tables. They don't sell widgets. They are just made up of people. They're services organizations, right? So some corporations do, but the point is they're all made up of people. So your clients are always the people who work at those organizations. So even when you're doing corporate work, you're helping people. So you're directly working with groups of people. If I'm doing a large IPO, for example, you're working with the company. So you're either working for the client, the corporation doing the offering, or you're working for the bank who's their financial advisor. There's two sets of lawyers. So whichever side you're on, there's the issuer, there's everyone who works there, there's the board, there's different heads of businesses, there's their counsel, and there's all the lawyers who work there. Then you have the financial institution, which is again made up of a bunch of people, and you have their lawyers. So you've got a group of people working together from different organizations, but with a unified goal. You're all trying to get that transaction done. And that transaction unlocks funding and money for that company. So without that money, that company might not be able to do an acquisition. So buying another company, it might not be able to have enough funds to continue running. And what do these corporations do? They either manufacture and produce things, they all create jobs, they all support people. So by keeping companies running and supporting companies, so there was recently the Deliveroo IPO. I mean, think about how many—
Which sounds like a flop, by the way, but there you go.
That's another, no comment on that. But the point is that, Deliveroo is a company that employs thousands and thousands and thousands of people. By helping them raise money, you are helping support that platform and that business. You're helping employ all the people who do it. You're helping all the consumers who use their services. You're supporting all the restaurants that use them as their delivery method, who they also make money. So, you really are helping and supporting people, and you're providing something, I think, that's vital and important to society. Without capital markets, without cash, without money, none of this would happen and we would not have civilization as we know it around us. So I do think that you are, look, you're not Mother Teresa, serving the poor in Calcutta, but you are providing a service to society. You are helping and supporting people, and your clients appreciate that. Your clients come to you and thank you, and you are assisting and supporting them, meeting their goals. You're helping advise them on risk. So I really do have a big belief in, no matter what you do, whether that you are still, helping and supporting others. And then also, as a kind of secondary thing, we are then privileged and able to have kind of a platform and resources that we can then support others in society as well, and support justice in other ways through pro bono or charitable work.
Thank you, Daniel. I thought that was a fantastic answer, because I do hear students say to me quite a lot, I want to be a lawyer because I want to help others, but they are not able to then articulate what they mean by that. And I thought the way you discussed that and the importance of money moving around in a market economy and how lawyers facilitate that happening was a really nice summary. So thank you for that. But going back to the other half of my question, did law deliver on what you were after?
Yeah, it actually did. I mean, I didn't know that it would, and I had no idea what area. So when I said I wanted to be a lawyer, I just said I want to be a lawyer. I had no idea what kind of law I was going to do. As I said, I didn't even really know what lawyers did, other than kind of, I don't know. I didn't really even watch those legal TV shows, so I didn't know much. I guess I'd seen some courtroom dramas, and I'd seen To Kill a Mockingbird, but I didn't even really.
Haven't we all?
I know, but I didn't really even watch shows like Ally McBeal, because I was in college when that was on.
Were you not more LA law era?
I saw an episode or two of LA Law.
And I think we're talking to the Suits generation, so.
Okay, yeah, and I've never seen an episode of Suits, so forgive me, everyone. Although people have told me I should watch it, I never really got into it. But I heard one of those actresses has done really well for herself. I was saying, for my career, I didn't really know what I wanted to do within law.
Sure.
I was very, I ended up where I ended up because I went to law school. I actually was really bored in law school. I really hated it. I went to a law school called Fordham, which is a great law school in New York, but it's very black letter law. So it wasn't theoretical. Like if you go to Oxbridge or you go to like Harvard or Yale in the US, the equivalents, there's a very theoretical approach to the law. When you do law school at a place like Fordham, they call it, it's black letter law. So you were literally just sitting there like, you have a real estate class and they're teaching you all the rules for co-op buildings versus, condominiums. And you're like, are you kidding me? I wanted to blow my brains out in those classes. They were really, really boring. The great thing about Fordham and why I picked it though, is they had a European law program. So I did the whole European law LLM during my JD. So that was great because that was comparative law. It was very intellectual. It was very theoretical. When you look at the EU, which we used to be part of, you've got the federal system. So you've got the EU law, and then you have member state law, and then you can analyze where there are overlaps, where one has exclusive jurisdiction, where the other one does. Sometimes the member states can put in place additional things over EU law. Well, American law is just like that, because we have you have federal law, you have state law, and you have things to go back and forth. So they're both federal structures that have a lot of parallel. So I thought that was great and really intellectually stimulating. So I ended up doing a clerkship in the European Court on the back of a program that sent people who studied European law through the US Embassy in Luxembourg, five every half year, 5 US students got to go do a clerkship, a stagiaire at the European Court. So that was amazing. So yes, it was international. Yes, it was cross-border. I got to live in Luxembourg. I worked in New York because of the background of what I studied. I ended up in corporate law because I got a job in my second summer. My grades weren't great. I mean, I was at Fordham. I had a property professor who not only did I find his class boring, but he was homophobic and was caught marking me, a lesbian, and an older woman down. But because, even though the university caught him, because LGBT plus people did not have federal legal protection, they moved the older woman he was marking down out of the class, because women were a protected class, but they left me and the lesbian in the class and marked us down, and we got a C. And once you got that 1 C, it just destroyed your grade point average. And no one would interview you, no one would see you. The dean knew he owed me, so the dean then put me into he was doing a committee on cameras in the courtroom for the state of New York. It was in the wake of the O.J. Simpson trial, and he asked me to be a research assistant for my first summer for him. So I worked my butt off for him. And then all during my second year of law school, I continued to work for him as a research assistant. The report was due during our finals for our second year. So once again, I took a hit on my second year finals because I was actually sitting with his secretary. Every other research assistant abandoned the dean and reneged on their commitments to the dean because they were more worried about their exams and their grades. And I felt like you don't make a commitment like that and you don't not deliver a report to the New York legislature that's due. So I worked on that. The dean knew he kind of owed me, so he wrote letters to help me get a job for my second summer. So in America, it's kind of like getting a training contract, that second summer job. Whoever hires you for your second summer as a law firm, you're almost guaranteed to get an offer for you when you start your career after you graduate. So the reverse of that is if you don't have one, you're screwed and you're unemployed, right? So I was going into unemployment. He helped me get a job in my second summer, and I worked for a general counsel where he wrote me a recommendation letter saying basically Daniel walks on water, and the general counsel of Shearing Powell Pharmaceuticals hired me without even interviewing me or meeting me and said, anyone Dean Feerick speaks about this way, I want on my team, you're hired for $25 an hour, report this day to New Jersey, to our headquarters. So I did that, and I rotated that whole summer, and I ended my summer in corporate law. And it was international corporate law. So I loved it. I loved the people I worked for. And then they helped me get my job at a law firm. So I ended up in corporate just because of the people I connected with. I ended up doing the jobs I was doing just because one thing led to another. And if you think about it, major obstacles were in my way, but by pushing forward and looking for opportunities, each opportunity led to the next opportunity. You never could have planned my career. And this is what I always tell people. You can't plan your career. You don't know what's in front of you. You have to take opportunities and options as they come up. And I do talk to a lot of young people now who are really rigid about what jobs they want or what careers they want. And as you pointed out, no one really knows what any of these jobs are. I mean, I talk to young people who are like, I want to be a derivatives lawyer. And then you say to them, do you know what a derivative is? And they can't even tell you. I barely can tell you what
I still don't know, so that's absolutely fine. I'm conscious that we're going to run out of time, and I want to allow the audience to ask questions. I've got so many questions for you.
Okay.
So if you had to give...
I'm giving you really long answers.
Can I have really short answers, please?
So I'm trying to be detailed and keep it...
Okay, I need to manage time better, note to self, right? So in really short answers, please, Daniel.
I'm going to give you short answers.
So if you had to offer one piece of advice, because your journey into law sounds as though it was up and down, obstacles, your sexuality seemed to be a massive obstacle, which is understandable given the era that you were doing all of this in. What do you think was the game changer for you in terms of one action you took that students listening in could be taking as also to help them plow forward and convert applications into offers?
Well, look, the short answer is, hard work and supporting and helping other people will unlock and open doors for you. If I have a theme in my entire career, that is true every step of the way. And I am where I am in this position, in my last position, everything you do leads to the next thing. So I think that you need to, I just saw someone say that they loved How to Get Away with Murder. I really have to tell you, as a lawyer, I really hated How to Get Away with Murder. I'm sorry, Robert and Sunit. I thought it was just so ridiculous and so implausible. I couldn't watch beyond the first episode, but that's just me. But I know people love that show, but as a lawyer, I couldn't get past how inaccurate it was and how poor it was when it came to even remotely.
Daniel, back to the answer, please. Otherwise the students won't get a chance to ask you a question.
We've got half an hour. Do we have to talk to me?
But I've got loads of other questions to ask. We haven't even spoken about your work in diversity and what you think of.
Yeah, we'll get there. So my thing is work hard, help others, take opportunities that are in front of you, and then and don't be rigid about where your career goes, because I think that's where I see a lot of people failing. So open those doors and look for opportunities to help and work with people. So if you're in university, look for professors you can help do research, help write articles, approach people and say, how can I help and support you? If you're already in a job and you're starting now as a trainee, look for partners you can help and support, ask how you can support their practice in marketing, but definitely look for ways of service, because it seems like now a lot of people think, what can you do for me? Or how can you help me? Because I'm diverse and I have these obstacles, so people owe me. And unfortunately, that's not really how the world operates. You need to go make your opportunities. Yeah. You need to go figure out alternative ways of overcoming those obstacles. No one has an easy path. And if you think someone had an easy path to success, some people have it easier than others, but everybody has worked to get where they are. Well, most people. There's obviously some people who get by with luck and charm and connections.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, because on paper, it would look like I had it easy, because I literally did A-levels, university, training contract, NQ job at the end of it. But I slogged my guts out to get there in terms of studying, summer jobs, volunteering, mooting, debating, vacation schemes. And I started small, so work experience in local law firms, the CPS, because I think, again, some students, and you're going to hate me for saying this, do think that they just deserve stuff, because that's the sort of mindset that some younger people have adopted. But I think you do need to fight for it. And I love your point about the sort of what's in it for the other person, because for me, it's all about relationship building. And there's got to be some reciprocation. You can't just be taking.
You can't come and volunteer for one day and then be like, now you owe me something. I mean, I literally have worked with people who have done that, and I was unable to work with them because it's ludicrous. If you're going to volunteer for someone, it can't be like, I've done 2 days of work and now you owe me a spot on a panel. You literally have to put in hard work, and that might mean you volunteer and help for a year expecting nothing in return, because you're also learning from that experience. So you have to appreciate the work and appreciate the experiences that you get. I also think something you brought up is don't make assumptions about other people and their journeys. We're very much in a world today where people look and, yes, if you look at statistics and studies, and including our own research at Interlaw, straight, white, elite educated men have less barriers and earn more money in the profession, but that's only on average. You don't know anyone's journey, and you can't assume. There's lots of disabilities that are invisible. People may have been through trauma in their lives. You just don't know about someone until they tell you. So you have to get to know people on an individual basis, and not make assumptions about the people around you, your colleagues, your fellow students, or what anyone's been through or gone through, until you ask them. And equally, trans people of color, and today's Trans Day of Visibility, but statistically speaking, they're one of the most challenged groups, but that doesn't mean there aren't trans people of color. I know some of them who lead very charmed lives. So we can't make assumptions about people on an individual basis. Those things only really inform us when it comes to groups and interpreting studies.
Yeah, it's funny because I've spoken to so many students and trainee solicitors and qualified lawyers, partners, GCs, etc. And if there's one thing that comes up again and again and again, and I think Richard Yule touched upon this during our Fireside chat with him earlier this month, it's about being a decent human being. It really is about relationship building. And as you say, offering your service to other people as well, and not having that one-way relationship where you want to keep taking from others and not give back. And I think that will really serve people well in terms of future career success as well. That what gets you into law in the first place, that attitude and mindset, if you maintain that, then that will help you to flourish longer term. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think when people ask about what can I do to succeed or stand out, if you are present when people are speaking, stay off your phone, pay attention, take notes in meetings. If you're engaged and you work hard, you will stand out from tons of people. I mean, you look at people who come from very elite, very fancy backgrounds that firms recruit and fight over, and often they're complete failures as lawyers. They're not interested in the work. They don't want to be there. Yes, you want to have a work-life balance, but you can't think that you're going to have every single weekend off the whole summer if you're doing a £1.5 billion transaction, and the partner that you work with and the senior associate and the mid-level associate and the junior associate are all in the office a few weekends over the summer. You can't think that when you're the trainee that you're not going to be there because you have, fancy weddings to go to. And, that really happened. And then you talk to someone and say, just go to people and say, look, I've got 5 things to do this summer. Obviously, I can't have all 5 of these weekends off. These are the 2 that are most important to me. Can we trade off, or can I cover for other people other times? But just having that collegiality, having that go-to and that engagement, you can stand out. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. And let's face it, you graduate from law school, most people don't know very much, because what you learn in law school isn't really relevant to what you do when you work.
Agreed.
So everyone can walk in that door once you get that opportunity, and you are equal to everyone else there, and you will be better if you are just switched on, paying attention, and engaged and collegial with everyone else.
Agreed. And I think that, that point about everyone comes in and it's a level playing field, because no one's really practiced law, and law at university is really quite different. In fact, it could not be any more different. I know, because I've got personal experience of it as well. Let's talk really quickly about sort of diversity before we move to getting the audience to ask you questions. One thing that I'm really sort of personally interested in is being authentic at work and being able to bring your whole self to work. And for me, it's always been a massive issue, because I've always been quite embarrassed about my background, for different reasons to yours. How did you find being someone from the LGBT community working in the city? Did you have to deal with sort of challenges? It's beyond your tutor marking you down. How have you overcome those?
That was the start. I mean, that happened in law school, and then also during law school, the university was Jesuit, and there was a diversity committee. So there was a Black student network, an Asian student network, and a Latino student network. There was not a women's network, which was interesting, but the LGBT network was not on that committee. And we had to go through a process where we had to engage with the other networks and deal with a lot of homophobia from all those groups through conversations. But the dean made us have one-on-one conversations. After finishing all those conversations, the dean came in a room and said, okay, everyone. And there was a lot of education and a lot of working with each other and talking to each other. And the dean pulled them all in a room, and he said, okay, you've now met with the LGBT network. Do you think they should join? And every single group still said no. And the dean said, well, thank you for your input. They're joining as of the next meeting. So, and we had the LGBT network, we had, what's his name? The huge activist in African-American activist in New York, Reverend Al Sharpton, offered to perform a gay marriage for us on the steps of our law school, which we passed on that opportunity. But, it was very isolating. I felt fine in New York. New York was very open. I mean, people have seen Sex and the City. That's a very accurate portrayal of New York in the 90s when I lived there. So people were very open. I felt like half the island was Jewish, the other half was LGBT+. So I was very comfortable in New York, but coming to London in 2000, it was very, very, very different and very isolating. Nobody was out. There were no professionals that were visible anywhere in the LGBT+ community. I still think there's a huge issue today about visibility of professionals. I feel like what you see in the media and what's on TV, I mean, for any other diverse group, if you turn on Netflix, what is LGBT+ programming to Netflix? It's RuPaul's Drag Race. It's Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. I mean, it's all stereotypes, and those are an important part of our community, but they're a very small part of our community. So I think seeing our community portrayed in a more realistic and real way, particularly in the UK, still doesn't exist. And there's just been a lot of challenges throughout my career. I mean, that's what prompted me to start Interlaw, was the need for a change and a transformation in the legal sector around LGBT+. And then as we became very successful at doing that, our mission, and we realized the importance of intersectionality, our mission expanded out. We launched additional networks and, continued focusing on shifting and changing equality across the board for everyone, because once you start getting into the intersectionality conversation, you realize that every group is inside of every other group.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing as doing LGBT+ only, because inside LGBT+, you have women, you have ethnic minorities, you have every other group, right? And so even now, when people are talking about Black Lives Matter and you look at 10,000 Black interns, I think, okay, well, those programs are great, but are they doing intersectionality? Are they actually supporting the whole Black community, or are they picking picking and choosing which parts they represent or they support. So I think it's really important that we all approach things from an intersectional way. And, you know, if real justice and real equality means that everyone can bring their whole selves to work and be authentic, as you said.
Now that you're on the client side, tell me, do you think law firms are doing enough to create an inclusive culture?
I think law firms are doing a lot, but I don't think law firms are doing the right things. I think law firms are doing a lot of events and a lot of awareness raising and a lot of pro bono and charitable work, and all of that is laudable, but none of that is really impacting or changing talent or how law firms are structured or how they manage talent.
Agreed.
And all you have to do is look at the top of law firms and look at the numbers, and they're just not there. They're not changing. So some firms have gotten great at recruiting, and you know, where we were at LGBT plus in 2008, we are light years ahead of it. But if you look at, you know, diverse and socially mobile talent, they leave law firms. So, you know, our research has shown that the best place to work is at in-house. The next best place is government legal, and the next best place, also known as the worst, are law firms. So law firms have a lot of work to do to create truly inclusive environments, particularly to recruit, retain, and promote the best talent. They've got the recruitment down, but it really is about retention and promotion, and it's about equity.
Yeah. What can the audience do to help facilitate that? Because, you know, are you saying that if you're from one of these diverse groups, don't bother because you're not going to succeed, you'll just end up going in-house or going to the government legal department? Because
but you know, what's wrong with that? Like, you know, my friends are, you know,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I think that, you know, I'm all about managing expectations, and my concern is that there isn't enough being done, and that brain drain continues. So what can, you know, and it's got to come from both ends, the senior end within law firms. Clients need to push law firms to do more, but what can our audience do? Because they're not going to be able to, they're not there yet, are they, in terms of managing that change from the top? So what can they be doing from the bottom up?
Well, that's part of being open. So to me, starting your career in a law firm and ending up in-house or government legal is not failure. That might be what your success looks like. So you do want to train and start at a firm. The other thing you can do is look for in-house training programs, because most of them, like at RBS and other places, have been designed to bring in more diverse and socially mobile candidates, because those organizations have figured out that law firms are never going to get them the kind of talent that they're looking for. So I think you guys can explore options, but then you just have to be open to what comes in front of you. So, you know, you have to be flexible about what success looks like. You know, I think I stayed at law firms for a long time because I kind of felt like, well, I'm going to make it better. I'm going to change it. And, you know, it is, I mean, you know, I've only been in-house for a few weeks, but, you know, I know from the research that it's quite different, and it's been night and day what it feels like walking into work, walking into meetings, dealing with people. And I'm in COVID, and even virtually the difference is palpable. And even in my interview process, my husband commented on just how different all the conversations were and how different all the behaviors were, and how people you know, how people were and how they interacted. So look, just because there's obstacles in your way doesn't mean that you can't be successful and overcome them. And as I said, everyone who is successful, success is not defined by the absence of failure or challenges. It's defined by how you deal with them and how you overcome them. And those obstacles and challenges make you stronger. I saw a quote today about, you know, it's the piece of grit that gets inside an oyster that makes the pearl. So those challenges can be what unlocks the most beautiful, amazing things that you don't expect, because of course, when that piece of sand goes into that oyster, I'm sure it's a little uncomfortable at first, but then it protects itself and creates this amazing pearl. So I think we are like that. And I think all of you should be out there just thinking, I can be successful, I can do it. And you can't be deterred by the fact that there will be challenges, and realize that every challenge you've overcome already, every experience that makes your life different, everything you've been through actually makes you a better lawyer and a better candidate and a better person. So I look at someone like Husnara, who I've known for a long, long time and admired, and think, how much she brings to the profession, how much she brings, and what her perspectives are. They're completely unique and completely different. We don't need, you know, cookie cutters around us. We need that diversity, not only from a D&I and social mobility perspective, but from a thought perspective. So reading Matthew Syed's Black Box Thinking. No, sorry, it's what's his book called? It's called The Power of Diverse Thinking. I was thinking, oh, here it is. I was going to say, I have 100 signed copies here. Matthew Syed's Rebel Idea. It's called The Power of Diverse Thinking, but this book is amazing.
Why do you have 100 signed copies?
Because we had him give a keynote at our Leadership Institute
got you.
for Apollo. So we had 125 GCs and senior in-house lawyers. But in fact, if you want, we can give away one of the signed copies tonight. So,
I was going to say, do you fancy giving one to one of our members of our live audience?
I do, of course. So why don't you, if you want to figure out how you do that, then that's fine.
I will figure out how.
Drawing of the people who are here tonight and just draw a name out of a hat and tell me, we'll get your address, we'll send you a book.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds fab.
In fact, we'll do two winners.
Oh, there you go. See, the gift that just keeps giving.
Yeah.
Look, I want the audience, I promised the audience they can ask questions and they're flooding in thick and fast. So let's go straight to the, oh look, see, people are saying, yes, please, can I have a copy of the book? There you go. Right, so let's make it really interactive. Switch your cameras on if you want to talk to us, because this is not the Husnara Begum show, this is the Cheeky Little Career show. So there you go, Henry has got his hand raised. So raise your hand if you have a question, and if you are brave enough to read it out in person, that's even better, it'll save me speaking. So go on then, Henry, you go first.
Hi, Daniel, thank you so much for that. I'm really just like uplifting, is the only word I can really say. So I've got two questions for you. So one's quite easy and then one's more kind of broader. So the first one is, what do you sort of expect are going to be the biggest, if you had to pick one great advantage and one disadvantage of going in-house, what would they be? And then the second more general question is, how do you think that kind of the Jefferies culture that Rich Hand has got with the sort of peloton and looking after the analysts and all that sort of stuff, how do you kind of look forward to that? And is that something that you really are going to value in your time at Jefferies? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean,
short answers, please, Daniel. Really short
answers. I'm going short. So, I'm going to say that, look, I think whether you're in-house or whether you're at a firm, success is what you make of it and what works for you. So you need to be where you're happy and where you fit. And maybe you'll end up at a firm where you love it forever. You become a partner and you end up in management and run it. Maybe your path is that within a few years, you go in-house, but you have to just be open to those opportunities. But I think going in-house is amazing. And I think if I were a young lawyer now, the opportunity of going to a Facebook or a Google, or, we're doing work with Peloton Legal. I mean, it's like, what a cool job to go work at they're hiring a bunch of lawyers over the next 6 months. What a cool place to go work. So I think it's really exciting to be a young lawyer now. There's such amazing opportunities out there. So I would encourage people as well to go into kind of IP, go into employment, go into areas that are transferable to these tech companies and that are really important areas. Real estate is an important area, tax. But think about what would service or support where those jobs are going to be, because those places aren't going away. They are the future of employment, and they're the future of law. And those are who law firms are going to be catering to, but also places you could be working. So I think it's super, super exciting. I'm really excited to be at Jefferies. I mean, to be in a company that just announced, record profits, over 2 billion in Q1 globally, and to have a culture. I mean, we had our town hall and literally over half of it was about the importance of people, the importance of D&I. They put a slide up with all the heads of all of our global networks and read out about each of them and their accomplishments and contributions to the business. So honestly, I'm really blessed to be at a company that is growing, but also recognizes that its success is due to people, and D&I is front and center. And as I said, I was on a board meeting and, D&I was front and center on that, talking about talent, talking about people. It really is amazing to see a place that kind of walks the walk. And you saw that, at the same time, the articles were coming out saying Goldman Sachs junior associates are absolutely miserable. My organization's announcing, do you want a Peloton? Do you want a mirror? Or do you want a package of Apple materials so you can, improve your work-life balance? And we know how hard you're working, but we value you.
Okay. Can I just add one point, just from my careers consultant sort of perspective? Because the questions come up a fair bit about working in-house, working in a law firm, which, as you know, is private practice. There are quite a lot more opportunities now to train in-house. And I think, Daniel, you mentioned the RBS training contract program, and some of the big corporates do offer in-house training contracts. And it's certainly worth exploring if you're struggling with private practice, for example. But it's also worth noting, and I think Daniel's already highlighted this in his opening answer about his first week at Jefferies, they're two different jobs. So that's worth noting. And if you do start your life as a trainee solicitor in-house, it can be difficult to go into private practice if you decide in-house isn't for you. So that's worth making a note of when you're planning which route you're going to take. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, right. So Robert, let's go with you next. What do you want to ask Daniel?
Thank you. Hi, Daniel. Lovely to meet you. And it's been a really, really good session so far. I had a question in relation, you spoke a bit about your experience of homophobia. And so my question was whether when you were practicing, whether you ever encountered homophobia with a client, and then whether, how you dealt with that and whether the firm was behind you. The question's related. Just recently, I was speaking to a partner in a firm and they mentioned nonsense about pronouns. And I actually, like you, have my pronouns in my Skype. So I actually had my pronouns in the Skype. So I thought that's a bit awkward. But I didn't say anything about it. So I was just wondering, whether you ever had any experience that you could share.
I mean, look, absolutely, it's definitely an issue. In the UK, people like to say, oh, look how advanced we are because of our laws. But, the laws are the beginning of your rights. They're not the end. So, if laws were the end all and be all, women have been paid equally on the books since the 1960s in America and here, and we're still doing gender pay gap reports. So what the law is not what you experience. The level of violence in London, every single LGBT plus person I know has been attacked, has been robbed, I've been put in the hospital, my partner's been put in the hospital in homophobic attacks. That is not a safe, wonderful place to live. There is a lot of homophobia on the streets. I've walked down, I live in Soho, Covent Garden. New York was like, you could walk, you could do anything. I saw one incident in 5 years of anti-LGBT plus violence. And it was a trans woman being attacked in the gay neighborhood. And literally within 1 minute, 3 bouncers descended to help her on 8th Avenue. And within 5 minutes, the police arrived and had the perpetrator arrested. I was beaten up on Old Compton Street in 2012. Sorry, not 2012, 2004. And I was attacked for being gay. It was a wall-to-wall people at about 11 o'clock on a Friday night. I finished work. I was just taking a walk with a friend. I wasn't out, I wasn't drinking, I was just walking around. Literally, there were hundreds of people all around. Nobody helped, nobody called the police. People joined in to attack. I had my nose broken. I had my forehead cut open with box cutters and ended up in the hospital. So, so I feel like that's like outside of work. And then inside of work, what happened? I couldn't finish a deal I was on because I had 2 black eyes and a broken nose and was too embarrassed to go to work. Someone who was a senior associate, she saw that as an opportunity to take over my role and take all the credit for all my work and erase me from a deal I've been working on for 6 months. So she stepped over my injury and saw that as an advantage. And I really had a huge disadvantage to work because of that. There's other things that have happened, but look, this stuff happens. It's gotten a lot better. That incident was a long time ago. I still don't feel totally safe walking around, but I'm very, very vigilant and very careful, especially late at night like that, when people have been drinking and when the streets are crowded. And, you have this weird mix because our LGBT plus neighborhood is mixed in with, casinos and strip clubs, and you have kind of very different people mixing that can lead to danger where, in other cities, normally those neighborhoods are kind of cocoon safe places. And I don't feel like we have that anywhere. I can walk down the street in Covent Garden and just look at some guy and he'll call me the F word. That happened just a couple of years ago. And you just think, I can't believe that's happening to me in Covent Garden, walking down the street, and literally all I did was look at someone. I wasn't doing anything. But all we can do is march forward and work better. I think it's great that we, within our LGBT plus community, we all have to support each other, but there's also too much competition about who has it worst, and people talking about, white gay men have privilege. And I'm like, well, was I privileged when I was beaten up and put in the hospital? Was I, we all go through our challenges. And I think we have to respect the fact that we're all part of protected categories, and it's not a competition for who has it the worst. We all just need to be supporting each other. And there's absolutely the struggle to survive, which is what, people who are the most disadvantaged are just trying to get food, shelter, health healthcare and the basics, and the rest of us are struggling to thrive. And both those struggles are real, and we can support both of those at the same time.
That's a really nice message there from Sunit, saying it's one of the reasons why solidarity is so important. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sunit. Sunit, do you have a question? You keep saying great comments.
Let her think of one, because I know Maria's been waiting patiently to ask her.
Okay,
So
great.
Maria, why don't you go next, and then we'll see if Sunit wants to ask anything.
Thank you. Hi, Daniel. It's very nice to meet you, and thank you for this very interesting conversation. So my question is, and I think you touched a bit on this earlier as well, based on your experience with interlaw and with corporate law as well, and what that has taught you so far, what are the best practices do you think a law firm should follow in order to respect and promote diversity at the same time?
Well, look, I think it's really important to do the work inside the four walls of the organization, and these days those
Agreed.
are virtual. But you know, you can write a check to Black Lives Matter. You can stream, you can buy books, you can stream TV shows. But you know, that's not, you know, that might help educate people to make them better allies, but supporting Black talent at work means hiring Black talent, retaining Black talent, and promoting Black talent. Now take that and spread it across the board, make it intersectional, but doing that hard work about transforming your culture, doing the tests and figuring out where are your systemic barriers, where are those issues and problems, and how do we unlock them and change them? Because we know that from our research that straight, white, educated men earn the most and face the least barriers, and everybody else is earning less and facing more barriers. And the more intersectional we are across D&I and social mobility, the less money we earn and the more barriers we face. So there's a lot of work to do, and there is no silver bullet. There's a ton. They have to do leadership training. They have to, you know, interrogate their systems. They have to, you know, change the way they remunerate people to reward people for better people behavior. They have to look at the costs of employment, not just the revenue. There's a whole stream of things, but there's not one thing that anyone can do.
Yeah, it's an absolute minefield, and I think that too much emphasis has been placed on the recruitment side of diversity, yeah, because it's easy PR. But in terms of making that seismic cultural shift, everyone needs to get on board, and there is no, as you say, magic bullet. And I certainly don't have the answers. I know that I'm talking to firms about sort of supporting BAME trainees through extra skills training and mentoring, etc. Just because, you know, the concern is that the minute they walk in and they realize that they're different, the imposter syndrome kicks in, the confidence is knocked, and that spiral of destruction starts unabated, sort of thing.
And I think
Anyway,
the other problem you have is people are doing their D&I programs, they're just taking diverse people, sticking them on a committee and saying, go do stuff. And so I get calls all the time from people being like, well, I happen to be diverse. I don't know anything about D&I. I have no idea what to do. And then people are kind of following social media trends, and you can't just follow social media trends and apply them to your business. I mean, you know, you have to look at so the first thing you would start with is look at your organization and find out what your issues are. Are there issues for women? Are there issues for people of color? Are there issues for LGBT? And then create programs that cater to and address the programs that you actually have. You can't just go by what you read on social media or articles you read or what these kind of social media influencers have to say, most of whom have no education, no background, and are just cutting and pasting crap from other people created. And now everyone thinks that's the truth and what's actually happening in the world. It's very scary. The disconnection from facts on the left and right is rampant. And I think we all need to go back to reading real articles, reading real research, you know, having real conversations about issues and looking for solutions, but they're all gray areas, they're all complicated, and we don't even really have any spaces where we can have these conversations now because people won't even tolerate nuanced conversations about solutions to issues. It's really a hard thing.
I've noticed Sunit has turned his camera on, so I'm hoping you have a question for us. Well, for Daniel, obviously, not me.
I do, thank you. I think it's a question that maybe both of you with your experience can answer. So in my time working in-house, I've faced, for example, difficulties with accountability in reference to diversity. I was wondering, how do we make sure that firms and in-house companies are more accountable and entrench the diversity work that we do in that kind of meaningful responsibility?
I've got a great answer, Husnar, but I'm happy to have you go first.
No, you go first, go on, because whatever I say is going to be wrong and controversial, and then Cheeky Little Careers will be shut down.
There are no wrong ideas. There's no wrong ideas. 1 second, I'm just putting a link up for people to look at. Well, I can't find it. 1 second, I'll tell you. So one of the things we're doing within Interlaw is we've launched a leadership institute for general counsel and senior in-house lawyers that now has almost 600 people in it. And we are launching a model diversity survey. So the clients sign up to it and the recipients are the law firms. And that goes through all the D&I stats. It goes through attrition, promotion, top 10% of earners, all broke down by the same categories the SRA uses. This has been running for 4 years by the American Bar Association, so the ABA in the US. We have signed an exclusive agreement with them to adopt it for the UK. It's being supported by Microsoft. There's a dashboard, so law firms input this information and clients get a Microsoft developed dashboard that generates reports. So when work is handed out or people are evaluating their panels, they have this huge range of data to look at. And we're also digging into culture questions. So I think that's one of the most important things I'm working on, other than my new job and I guess my husband and my dogs, and maybe they're all somewhere in the middle, I don't know. But this is super important because that accountability and that transparency. So it's like, stop having events, like, stop having International Women's Day breakfasts and shopping for shoe events with cocktails and start just promoting women to equity partnership. It's not that complicated. We've been recruiting women within the legal profession at 50% levels for 25 to 30 years. So there's just no excuse for the fact that it's still like 14% equity partnerships are women. And then people say, oh, we shouldn't put quotas in place. And it's like, well, do any of those men say I shouldn't be here? Because clearly there's about 30%, 40% women who are a lot more talented than me who should be in this seat instead of me. And I've sat at those tables with those partners. Trust me, they're not all superstars. They're all not all going to knock your socks off. Some are great and superstars. Some are good. Some are very good. Some are good. And some of them are mediocre to average. But none of the people who are mediocre to average are women, LGBT plus, ethnic minority. We have to be, working twice as hard or 3 times as hard just to get to that table.
Daniel, I agree with all of that. I think that it's time to stop talking and time to start doing. Because I'm personally sick to death of all the sort of free and cheap PR you can get by having, international days for everything, having awareness days, etc. And what I like about the point of read data and stats is that that's what talks, because it's, I can tell you now, in my intake, when I was a trainee, it was a 50-50 split between female and male trainees. Where are all the female partners from my intake? Don't know is a simple answer. The only thing I would say, though, is that I'm a huge fan of the fact that we as diverse members of the legal community have to play our part as well, because I'm going to say something really controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway because that's what I'm like. This point, I read an article in the BBC, on the BBC website yesterday, about how BAME people don't want to be called BAME anymore. And I think that one of the things that us diverse people do is we sometimes bring the troubles onto ourselves by acting like we're just having a good old moan all the time, sort of thing. And I think we also need to stop moaning and actually think, okay, what can we do collectively to support our causes and to raise our awareness amongst ourselves, sort of thing. Because I know, for example, when I was a trainee, if I'd been offered extra help, then I would have taken it, because as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't know how to behave at networking events. I didn't know how to talk about opera with clients, etc. And I think that, we can take offense from microaggressions and people being a bit naive and making clumsy comments, but we can also look at ourselves as to how we react to that, because I think education is also important as well as the data, because having those conversations and removing the awkwardness from those conversations will also help, I think, in terms of that inclusive mindset that we need people to adopt.
Yeah, and I think it's a great example of like people bringing up that issue. I mean, no one really calls someone a BAME, right? Black, Asian, minority, ethnic is the protected category under the law in the United Kingdom. Yeah. So people who are saying, I don't like that, it's like, well, some of that's motivated because they don't understand the law and how it works. I think you don't want to call someone a BAME if they find that offensive, but no one really does that who knows what they're doing. Of course, you have to respect and break down the fact that there are Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, and then umbrella categories under each of those areas. But, and so anyone who's doing good research is sometimes you are going to lump that group together because from a statistical point of view, you might not have enough data to go down in too granular a way, but that's something you'd want to do down the line. So when you monitor, you would ask the different categories, but when you analyze that data, you may have to collapse those down. So people who know more about D&I, but it's like, what a waste of time to talk about because we have all these real issues other than language talking about, so what you just substitute one word for another word, and then it's like, okay, well, we can do that. But also I think what bothers me about a lot of the motivations for that is people will say, well, I'm Black and my experiences are so different from everybody else. Well, I can't speak for individuals and what they experience, but I can certainly talk about our research, which tells us that's 100% not true. And this world where we're pushing ourselves farther apart by saying that the Black experience in the law is different from the Asian experience in the law, which is different from other ethnic minorities, which is different from LGBT, which is different disability. Our research doesn't show that at all. Our research shows you're either in the in group or you're in the out group, which means you're going to be making less and facing more obstacles. And as I said, the more boxes you tick, that's when things get worse for you. So there isn't a group. The only group that were different from that rule were Black men. So Black men were worse off than Black women. That was the only exception to that intersectionality box tick.
Okay, I'm afraid we're out of time. So what did you want to say by way of sort of closing remarks? I could talk to you all evening, but I also need to have some dinner.
No, well, everyone gets a book. So Jonathan, my husband's off screen, he runs Interlaw. So every single person here gets a book. So just email Jonathan, it's jonathan.leonhardt@interlawdiversityforum.org. Send us your mailing address and we'll send you a signed copy of Matthew Syed's book. So,
Sunit said he'd quite like your autograph as well.
Okay, well, I'm not going to sign Matthew Syed's book because I didn't write it, but I will write you a little note, all of you guys, and thank you for coming tonight. And thank you for joining us. And thanks for having me. It's really an honor to speak to all of you. I'm glad that we've had a small group so we can have an intimate conversation. I think it's been really great. And I want to thank Huznara and Sanu for inviting me, and I really applaud the work you guys are doing with Cheeky Little Careers because I think it's super important to be supporting everyone in the talent pipeline. And everyone come to Interlaw, sign up, it's free. All our events are open to everyone. Everything is for allies. So we have our LGBT plus network. We announced today 4 events for Legal Pride that have groundbreaking, amazing intersectional speakers. We have a Amplifying Asian Voices event coming up on the 5th of May. We have amazing speakers lined up for that too. And it's such an important time to talk about stopping Asian hate and how much support we need to give to particularly the East Asian community, but all of us coming together right now. So thank you guys for having me, and please